Is this good news or bad news? I honestly haven't got a clue. Shrek is such a cinematic enigma when you look at it through several different perspectives. They've had some high highs, the highest highs I can fathomably imagine, but boy have they had some low lows too. But I guess looking at its popularity through both a critical level, a physical level, a cultural level, and an internet level, in some ways, I guess it was always inevitable to be making a return since some executive just wants to have that potential money. Now, you probably remember this news, but it's also probably been a good long while since you heard about it. But trust me when I say, it's still a thing, though the details on it all have become a little muddled over time, with rumours and speculation warping the project into all sorts of different forms. Maybe you've heard of some of these rumours, or maybe you're going into this completely blind. Whatever the case, let's venture into the world of Shrek once again and go through just what there is to expect in probably like a couple of years from now. So Shrek, I know it's become the powerhouse of meme culture that's just been endlessly joked upon from practically every line in their movies at this point, but on a genuine level, this franchise is incredibly good. Kinda. The first two films are rightfully hailed as some genuine masterpieces for its innovative approach to the fairy tale genre, and it's generally just some good, wholesome kids' films. The humour is crass and slightly more mature for the adults in the room, whilst the subversions on the fairy tales highlight every single character in the world to be incredibly interesting and refreshingly new to what we would already know. Not to mention the whole theming and execution, of course, is just fantastic. I mean, look at Shrek 2. Every single line in this whole film's script just seems to be polished into something just pure solid gold. Several upon several of the scenes can't be described as anything less than purely iconic. And sure, the soundtrack is pretty good when you hear it for the first times. I think at this point we've all gotten a little bit overexposed, to say the least. But while this is a fantastic foundation for a movie franchise to be getting yet another installment, the legacy of the Shrek name is something that's become a whole lot more tainted and muddied again over the years. Though I say that, I'm only really reaching to like 2010, we haven't even reached the internet boom just yet. The third and fourth films were notably a step down to what audiences idolized about the original two films. I may have watched a pretty compelling video that told me that Shrek Forever After wasn't actually all that bad, but I haven't actually watched it since it came out, so, you know, I don't know. But Shrek the Third? Oof. There are moments I personally loved, and I rewatched it a sinful amount of times as a kid, but the Shrek films have definitively gone down over time. And then there's things like those Christmas spin-off spooky stories and Puss in Boots the movie, which apparently wasn't all that bad. Huh. Even still, now that whole franchise foundation seems a little more rocky for a new film to be inserting a new appearance on. I mean, what is one supposed to expect from a whole new one? Will it return us to the simpler times of an earlier plot, or will it make good of the new stitched together cast list? Or will it just be an obviously greedy cash grab that's just riding on the popularity of Shrek's influence? I mean, I probably don't have to tell you the prevalence Shrek has had on the internet. So okay, let's actually turn back to when this Shrek 5 was first incepted. 2001. No, really. There apparently was always going to be an intention to, in some form, wrap up Shrek's story in 5 films. The original story of Shrek would apparently loop us round to explain to us just how Shrek first ended up in that swamp from the very first film. I guess making it a kind of prequel film, seeing our baby-eating father and all. Or not, I don't really know. Still, that version of Shrek 5 was obviously scrapped away, as the team felt that Shrek Forever After's story in 2010 was a much more fitting epilogue for the narrative they had created. But it wasn't necessarily thought to be the end of the Shrek franchise. They simply wanted to give the characters a rest, with at the time DreamWorks CEO Jeffrey Katzenberg saying, "I think you can be confident that we'll have another chapter in the Shrek series. We're not finished, and more importantly, neither is he." And though clearly that rest now seems to be ongoing for at least 10 years now, this still wasn't initially the case. Instead, we have to jump to the Shrek franchise spin-off series, or I guess singular film, Puss in Boots. The original film came out in 2011, and a sequel film was initially planned soon afterwards. By November of 2012, a couple of script drafts had already been written, with Puss now being taken on an adventure to exotic places. By April 2014, Antonio Banderas himself said that work on the sequel had just begun. And by June 2014, it had been retitled to Puss in Boots 2, 9 Lives and 40 Thieves. I keep expecting that title to rhyme, but it never does. 9 Lives and 40 Hives. wives. Anyway, this project was first scheduled for November 2nd, 2018, and later delayed to December 21st, 2018, and then in January 2015, it was removed from the release schedule entirely, as the whole thing was being restructured. Now at this point, considering Shrek to make an appearance, suggesting some kind of pseudo-Shrek sequel to be made. And then in 2016, DreamWorks had a company-size overhaul. But before we get to that, if you're liking my stuff so far, do consider subscribing. Only you can help balance out my skewed unsub ratio count. And I've got more Shrek content for you. On top of trying to make somehow his outfit out of real clothes, and I don't have a crop top, so it's not really working, we're also streaming Shrek games around about now when this gets uploaded. Because it is a Friday, it is our movie slot for the stream channel, and I figured why not try and do a movie adaptation in reverse, so that it's a movie trying to make video games and see if they're any good. So that's what we're doing right now. Check it out on the link if it's new to this video. When you've just seen this, it's pretty fresh and uploaded. If it's not, it'll be on a VOD or a channel where I've uploaded it somewhere, and I'll link it in the description or the comments or something. Anyway, with all of that disclaimer out of the way, that's a lot of exposition, let's get back to that 2016 overhaul, shall we? At this point in time, NBC Universal purchased DreamWorks Animation for $3.8 billion, and as the new chief, Steve Burke was now in a position to discuss Shrek revival plans and reform the projects under the franchise. And now the Shrek project we're faintly familiar with comes into being, with this new chief obviously wanting to recreate that magic now. So in 2016, development of Shrek 5 began with Michael McCullers working on the script. This guy previously is a bit of a mixed bag, with simultaneously being the writer for Austin Powers, very nice, and also Boss Baby. Are we doomed, or are we not? Austin Powers very much has that mature elbow nudge kind of humor, but modern kids films have notably taken a more basic approach. But actually, the whole digs deeper. On top of having Michael McCullers on the team, our secondary member comes in the form of Christopher Meledandri, in charge of producing and part of the story too. This guy you might not immediately recognize, but you've certainly felt his influence. This is the founder and CEO of Illumination, Mr. Minion Singh Grinch Life of Pets Lorax himself. Though apparently he was also executive producer of Ice Age and Cool Runnings back in the day. Because of that old NBC Universal merging, the ties between DreamWorks and Illumination are now pretty direct. Cue the internal screaming, am I right? Yeah, I know, that was pretty much my first impression upon reading this too, but apparently, looking into it more, this guy isn't quite the end of the world. He's just found a lazy formula. Maybe. As a creator, he seems to be pretty cognizant of making something good, taking a pretty hands-on approach to most of his projects, and living a life that's notably more modest and shy compared to other more controversial animation giants of the past. He was even somewhat offered the role of both overseeing Illumination and DreamWorks and chose against it, stating he feels he's better as a filmmaker than managing big corporate companies, which is kind of commendable, not gonna lie. And when talking about the Shrek franchise, most of his thoughts aren't disagreeable. With Meledandri being exposed to animation through his kids and having one of his early examples being Shrek, Chris is certain that he wants to bring back the original cast. It's a no-brainer, right? He says, when you look back on those vocal performances, they're awesome, and while you certainly could make a case for a complete reinvention, he finds himself responding to his own nostalgic feelings of wanting to go back to those characterizations. The challenge has been trying to find something that really does feel like it's simply not yet another film in a series of sequels. And yes, that is exactly what this Shrek film is trying to highlight. It doesn't plan to be just a fifth film installment to be diluted into the Shrek zeitgeist, it wants to make an established, stark identity for itself. Which has then started the open question, is this a sequel, or is it a reboot? Another notable headline you may have seen perk up a few years ago is, yes, this new project has been considering some kind of teetering the line change of rebooting the entire series. Which, to be fair, makes a whole lot of sense. There is an extensively extended cast of characters going on at this point, and it certainly seems difficult to somehow drive the whole thing in a new direction whilst balancing all of these moving parts together, right? Well, funnily enough, when I first heard this headline of a Shrek reboot, I honestly thought they meant a Shrek 1 remake. You know, like how Disney is doing live-action remakes of every IP they ever own ever and are completely tarnishing their library in the process? Yeah, apparently my brain just immediately skipped to, oh no, they're making an animated remake for an already animated film with new animation technology. What a weird bandwagon that my brain just jumped to a conclusion of. I simultaneously hate this idea, and honestly, I'd be kinda curious to see an upgraded Shrek story. But no, I'm pretty sure that's not a thing. Besides, the best retelling of the original Shrek tale has already been told in all of its glory. And it just keeps giving more, like every 30 seconds. But no, going back to writer McCullers, we can actually piece together somewhat the form this new Shrek story is said to take, with McCullers talking about his script and how much he actually likes it, saying in one interview that the 5th and final installment in the franchise was really personal to him and he really loves it. That's a direct quote. It's got a pretty big reinvention behind it that he guesses he can't really reveal right now, but can't wait for audiences to see. I tried looking into personal details of his life briefly, felt a tad creepy as I did it, but the only real thing there really is there is that he lives in LA with his wife and children, with kids being quite a theme in his life, describing his wife as baby crazed, and writing a comedy all about pregnancy and such. So I guess on the speculative front, the film will presumably cover the ogre babies, keeping up with that extended cast idea. Even still, the main point of this film is reinvention. In some manner, the premise of the franchise is to be flipped on its head. Admittedly, I was expecting this to mean we're getting a prequel film / redo of the first tale with characters in new positions, what if Prince Charming actually saved Princess Fiona in that tower and Shrek was never involved, with all the characters mixing together again under new circumstances, though I guess that kind of is the outline of Shrek Forever After, with Fiona actually being saved this time. Ah well. So, okay, it is a reboot of sorts that tries to reinvent the idea. It's being released 10 years after the release of the last films, but it also has the original voiced cast list planned. Weird, to say the least. No wonder everyone's confused about it. Further to that, the entire cast list isn't actually confirmed yet. Cameron Diaz is retired from acting, so should we really be expecting her to retake her role, or maybe a replacement? The only 2 solid slots are Donkey and Puss, because of course it is. Whether the plotline is sequely rebooting, or I'm just barking up the wrong baby tree here, this project was set for a 2019 release, but obviously continued its slow pace, and with the pandemic of 2020 going on, you can assume progress on this film is still moving at a snail's pace on a production side of things. Though there is one potential final puzzle piece to fit into all of this: IMDb. Not always to be trusted, but there is a page for this film, labelled as the Untitled Shrek Reboot 2022. According to this, the release is set to pre-prepped for September 2022. We'll see about how all that plans out. This page is pretty bare bones, but there is a sister page that could enlighten us a tad more, with Puss in Boots 2 now being untitled again, revealing in February 2019 that Bob Persichetti, the head writer of the first Puss in Boots film, is directing this sequel. You may know this guy too, he's the guy who directed Into the Spider-Verse, as well as contributed to plenty more iconic films as well. Oh hey, that lines up. Similarly, Latifah, oh, this is an interesting... Oh, how on earth do you... Okay.
O-U-A-O-U.
That is not how you pronounce it.
O-U-A-O-U.
That's how you spell it. I can't find an interview that says her name.
So Latifah, what convinced you that the team that Benedict Cumberbatch...
They only pronounce her first name. I apologize if I get this name wrong, but... Similarly, Latifah Auer's been added to oversee development, having previously produced the first film and more Illumination projects. And Chris Meledandri also serves as executive producer on this project too. According to IMDb trivia, whenever this film does come out, it'll officially be the longest wait for a DreamWorks animation sequel, exceeding the 7.5 gap between The Croods and The Croods 2. The project was thought to be a reboot at one point, but was scrapped in favour of a traditional sequel. And according to Letterboxd, the story has Puss in Boots travel to a temple to defeat the notorious bandit El Brito and his 40 thieves. Take that one with a big grain of salt. I just found it through one source one time, so, you know. Overall, with all this news, fans have had a mixed reaction to it all. The 4 Shrek films have grossed over $2.9 billion worldwide, and it's clear there is an adoration for Shrek, both memically and legitimately too. But what exactly is going on with Shrek 5? I honestly haven't got a clear clue. Supposedly, it is start to set production in late 2020/early 2021, but I'm sure that's to be pushed a little more with this semi-quarantine limbo we're all in, and one source did actually say that the story will have a focus on Shrek's family, with his and Fiona's kids who are now grown up as teenagers now. Kinda lines up with the writer's personal life to some degree, and would be a reinvention of characters following the established world sometime later as a kind of sequel that spreads far enough to be its own reinvention, with every character being aged up a decade, I guess. Perhaps with Shrek trying to teach his kids not to make the mistakes of his past self, or something like that. Shrek and Donkey relate to each other over the issues of being fathers, I don't know. Whatever the case, it's abundantly clear that the creators want to introduce a whole new plot and theme for the series. All their wording suggests this is a one-off, but let's be honest, it's probably not going to be when there's money to be made. And with that, that's pretty much all the details I have to tell you. Different sources say different things, and honestly, the confirmations come off as a little muddied and contradictory. But I guess we'll have to see in supposed 2022 just what form this new Shrek revival reinvention has to offer us. For now, I'm gonna end it off here. One thing we know for certain is that, yes, Shrek in some form is coming back. For now, my name's been Daz, you didn't really care, and I'll see you in a bit. Is this really better? I tried to make like a crop top design. I realized I could just fold this thing up, but man, this looks like a cursed costume image if I've ever heard of one. Anyway, do let me know what kind of movie direction you would expect Shrek 5 to go, or how to possibly do it justice. I'm a little hesitant to think that they can do, and if it is around about time for you, do check out the Twitch link. Go and see me play some Shrek games. I'm gonna have even more wild and longer hair because this is pre-recorded. It's gonna be a whole fun time. Hopefully. I'm in it for the memes. Shrek 5 better be memeable.